The sky burned orange and red when the ships first appeared above Earth. They came without warning, without diplomacy, without mercy. Their massive vessels blocked out the sun and cast shadows over entire cities. The people of Earth looked up and felt true fear for the first time in generations. Stood on the rooftop of her apartment building in the coastal city of. She was 28 years old, a former military officer who had left service just 2 years ago. Her younger brother Ho stood beside her, his hands shaking as he watched the alien ships descend. "What do we do?" Ho asked. His voice was small and afraid. Did not answer. She had no answer to give. There were giants. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were black and empty, showing no warmth or feeling. They had 4 arms, each one ending in clawed hands that could crush a human skull with ease. When they spoke, their voices were deep and rumbling like thunder. The invasion took only 3 days. Earth's military fought back with everything they had. Tanks fired, jets flew, missiles launched. None of it mattered. The technology was centuries beyond anything humans possessed. Their shields stopped every bullet and bomb. Their weapons turned soldiers into ash with single shots. On the 3rd day, the world's government surrendered. There was no other choice. Remembered the broadcast clearly. The commander appeared on every screen across the planet. He was the largest of his kind, with scars covering his face and arms. His name was, and he spoke with complete contempt for the species he had just conquered. "Humans," said, his black eyes staring through the camera, "you are now property of the Empire. You will serve us. You will obey us. You will work until your weak bodies fail. This is your purpose now. This is all you will ever be." He paused and made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds," he continued. "We have defeated species with great strength and advanced weapons, but never have we found a species so feeble as yours. Your bodies are soft. Your bones break easily. You cannot survive in heat or cold. You need constant food and water. You are the weakest creatures in the galaxy." The broadcast ended, and the enslavement began. And Ho fled when they started rounding up people for labor camps. They traveled south to a small fishing village where their grandmother lived. For 2 weeks, they thought they might be safe there. The village was small and unimportant. Perhaps the aliens would ignore it. They were wrong. The ship arrived on a quiet morning, was helping her grandmother prepare breakfast when she heard the sound of engines overhead. She ran outside and saw the vessel landing in the center of the village. Soldiers marched out with their weapons ready. "All humans will gather here immediately," one of them announced through a device that translated their language. "Anyone who runs will be killed." The villagers came out of their homes slowly, their faces filled with terror. There were perhaps 200 people in total, mostly elderly and children. The fishing boats had taken most of the young men out to sea. Held Ho's arm tightly. "Stay calm," she whispered. "Do exactly what they say." An officer walked through the gathered crowd, examining the humans like they were livestock. He stopped in front of his grandmother, a small woman of 73 years. "This one is too old," he said. "She cannot work." "Please step forward without thinking. She can do light tasks. She can cook. She can clean. Please do not hurt her." The officer turned to look at. He was silent for a long moment, studying her face. "You speak for her?" he asked. "She is my grandmother. I will do extra work to make up for her, please." The officer made that rumbling sound again, realized it was indeed laughter. "Extra work," he said. "Look at yourself. You are small and thin. Your arms are like sticks. What extra work could you possibly do?" He reached out and grabbed his arm, lifting her off the ground with one hand. She gasped in pain as his claws dug into her skin. "Do you see?" the officer said to his soldiers. "This is what we have conquered. These fragile little creatures think they can bargain with us. They think their lives have value." He dropped to the ground. She fell hard, scraping her knees and palms on the rough dirt. "The old one comes with us," the officer said. "She will work until she dies. That is the fate of all humans now." Ho lunged forward. "Leave her alone." A soldier struck him across the face, sending him spinning to the ground. Blood poured from his nose and mouth. Crawled to her brother and held him, shielding his body with her own. The grandmother was taken, never saw her again. That night, in a holding cell with dozens of other prisoners, sat in the darkness and made a promise to herself. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans would accept slavery without resistance. They thought wrong. Ho sat beside her, his face swollen and bruised. "What are we going to do?" he asked again, the same question from the rooftop. This time had an answer. "We survive," she said quietly. "We watch, we learn, and when the time comes, we fight back." "Fight back," Ho shook his head. "You saw what they did. We cannot beat them." "Maybe not today," replied. "Maybe not tomorrow, but they have made a mistake. They see our small bodies and think we are weak. They do not understand what humans really are." "What are we?" His eyes were hard and cold in the darkness. "We are survivors," she said. "We survived ice ages and plagues. We survived wars that killed millions. We survived every disaster that tried to destroy us. They have conquered many worlds, but they have never faced a species like ours. They do not know what we become when we are pushed to the edge." Ho was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "Tell me what to do," he said. "I will follow you." Outside the cell, guards walked past, their heavy footsteps shaking the floor. They did not look at the humans inside. Why would they? The humans were just weak little creatures, meant to serve and die. They could not hear the words spoken in the darkness. They could not see the fire burning in his eyes. And they could not imagine the vengeance that was beginning to take shape in the mind of one small, fragile human woman. The invasion was over. The occupation had begun. But the war new was just starting. 3 years passed under rule. 3 years of suffering, death, and despair. Millions of humans died in labor camps. Millions more worked until their bodies gave out. The aliens used humans for everything, from mining to construction to cleaning their ships. When a human could no longer work, they were disposed of like broken tools. But in those 3 years, something else was growing, something they could not see. Crouched in a tunnel deep beneath the ruins of Seoul. The passage was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. Above her head, she could hear the distant rumble of vehicles moving through the destroyed city. Below her feet, hidden from all sensors and patrols, was the base of the Korean resistance. She dropped down through a hole in the tunnel floor and landed in a large underground chamber. Dozens of people looked up at her arrival. Some were former soldiers like herself. Others were farmers, teachers, and factory workers. All of them had lost someone to the... All of them wanted revenge. "You are late," a woman's voice said from across the room. Smiled and walked toward her. "The patrol routes changed again. I had to take the long way." The woman was named. She was 35 years old with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Before the invasion, she had been a professor of military strategy at a university in Seoul. Now, she was the tactical mind behind the resistance movement. "What did you find?" asked. Pulled a small device from her jacket. It was a communication unit, stolen from a guard she had killed 2 nights ago. "Their encryption is weak," said. "Jin should be able to break it within a few days." At the mention of his name, a young man looked up from a table covered in wires and broken machines. Jin was only 22, but he was the best engineer the resistance had. He could build weapons from garbage and hack alien technology with tools made from spare parts. "Give it here," Jin said, reaching for the device. "I have been waiting for one of these." Handed it over and turned to look at the rest of the room. In one corner, her brother Ho was teaching a group of young fighters how to use captured weapons. In another corner, Medics were treating wounded resistance members who had barely escaped a raid the week before. 3 years. 3 years of hiding and fighting and dying. The resistance had grown from a handful of survivors to a network of thousands spread across what remained of Korea. Similar groups existed in other countries, all connected by secret channels and shared hatred for their oppressors. But they were still losing. They were too strong, too numerous, too advanced. Every victory the resistance achieved was followed by brutal retaliation. For every alien killed, 100 humans died in punishment. Seemed to Reed's thoughts. "Come with me," she said. "There is something you need to see." She led to a small room at the back of the chamber. Inside, medical equipment surrounded a table where a body lay. The alien was dead, its gray skin turning pale and its black eyes clouded over. "We captured this one alive last month," explained. "It died 3 days ago." "From its wounds?" "No." Eyes gleamed with something that looked almost like hope. "From a cold." Stared at her. "What?" "A common cold. The same virus that gives humans a runny nose and sore throat for a week. It killed this in 72 hours. The information took a moment to process. Looked at the dead alien on the table, then back at their immune systems, said slowly. "They cannot handle Earth diseases." "Exactly. They evolved on a world with very few pathogens. Their bodies never developed strong defenses against infection. When they came to Earth, they brought advanced technology and powerful weapons. But they also walked into a world filled with billions of microscopic enemies they cannot see." Felt her heart beating faster. "Why are they not all dead then?" "Their suits and ships are sealed environments. They filter the air and sterilize everything. As long as they stay protected, they are safe. But if that protection fails, even for a short time, they become infected. And once infected, they die quickly." This was the first real advantage the resistance had ever found. They were not invincible. They had a weakness, one that Earth itself could exploit. "There is more," continued. "I have been studying their battle records. They have conquered hundreds of worlds, but they have never fought a long war. Every species they defeated surrendered quickly. They have no experience with prolonged resistance, because they always win immediately. Yes, their strategy depends on overwhelming force and quick submission. But humans did not surrender completely. We retreated, hid, and regrouped. We have been fighting for 3 years now, longer than any other species ever resisted them, and it is wearing them down." Thought about this. She had noticed that patrols seemed less organized lately. Their responses to resistance attacks were slower, sloppier. She had assumed it was overconfidence. Perhaps it was something else. "They do not know how to fight prey that keeps fighting back," said. "Exactly. They are predators. They are used to hunting, not being hunted. They do not understand persistence. They do not understand endurance. And they certainly do not understand humans." That night called a meeting of all resistance leaders who could attend in person or through their secret communication network. She told them what had discovered. She watched their faces change from despair to hope as they realized what it meant. "We cannot beat them in a direct fight," said. "But we do not need to. We just need to keep fighting. Every day we survive is a day they grow weaker. Every attack we make is a cut that will never fully heal. We will bleed them slowly until they collapse." Ho stood up from his seat. "And the disease? We will find ways to expose them, break their seals, contaminate their supplies, let Earth itself become our weapon." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Jin spoke up. "I can build devices that will breach their suit filters. Small bombs that release concentrated pathogens, if we can get them close enough to soldiers. Then we turn their invasion into a death sentence." Finished. For the first time in 3 years, saw real hope in the eyes of her people. They had been surviving. Now they could start winning. "Spread the word to every resistance cell on the planet," commanded. "Tell them the war has changed. Tell them we have found the enemy's weakness. Tell them that humanity is no longer just fighting to survive." She paused and looked at each face in the room. "Tell them we are fighting to win." The message went out that night, transmitted through hidden channels to every corner of the occupied Earth. In bunkers and basements, in caves and collapsed buildings, resistance fighters received the news and began to plan. They continued their patrols, unaware of what was coming. They still saw humans as weak creatures, easily broken and easily controlled. They did not know that the prey had learned to become predators. They did not know that their own arrogance would be their destruction. And they certainly did not know that beneath their feet, in the darkness they never bothered to search, an army was preparing to rise. The supply depot sat on the outskirts of what used to be. It was a massive complex of warehouses and landing pads where alien ships delivered food, weapons, and equipment for the occupation forces. Guard towers surrounded the perimeter, and patrols walked the grounds at all hours. They considered it one of their most secure facilities in the region. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lay flat on her stomach in the tall grass 200 meters from the outer fence. Beside her, Ho checked his weapon for the 10th time. Behind them, 40 resistance fighters waited in silence, their faces painted with mud and ash to hide in the darkness. "The patrol will pass in 2 minutes," his voice crackled through the small earpiece. War was watching from a hidden position on a nearby hill, using stolen binoculars to track enemy movements. "Understood," whispered back. This was the largest operation the Resistance had ever attempted. For months, they had been gathering intelligence, stealing equipment and training fighters. Jin had built the pathogen bombs exactly as he promised, small devices that could breach suit filters and expose them to concentrated Earth bacteria. Tonight, they would test those weapons for the first time. The patrol passed, 4 soldiers walking in formation with their weapons ready. They moved with the casual confidence of predators who had never known fear. They did not look toward the grass where 40 humans held their breath. "Now," commanded. The first team moved forward, cutting through the fence with tools that made no sound. They slipped through the gap and pressed themselves against the wall of the nearest warehouse. The second team followed, then the third. And Ho led the final group toward the main storage building. Inside, according to their intelligence, were the supplies that kept the occupation running in this sector. Destroy those supplies, and they would be crippled for weeks. They reached the door without being seen. Jin, who had joined this team, pulled out a device and attached it to the lock. 3 seconds later, the door slid open. Inside, the warehouse was dark and quiet. Rows of containers stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with alien technology and equipment, signaled for the team to spread out and plant explosives at key points. "Contact," a voice suddenly said through the earpiece. It was one of the fighters from the first team. "We have been spotted, engaging now." The sound of weapons fire erupted from across the complex. Alarm sirens began to wail, filling the night with their harsh noise. The mission had just become much more dangerous. "Finish planting the charges," ordered. "We stick to the plan." Her team moved faster now, racing against time. Ho placed the last explosive and ran back toward her. His face was calm despite the chaos outside. "All charges set," he reported. "Ready to detonate on your command." "Good, everyone, fall back to the extraction point. We leave in 60 seconds. They moved toward the door, but it burst open before they reached it. 3 soldiers rushed in, their weapons already firing. The first shot struck 2 resistance fighters, killing them instantly. Dove behind a container and returned fire. Her weapon was a modified rifle that Jin had altered to fit human hands. It kicked hard against her shoulder as she pulled the trigger. One of the aliens went down, a hole burned through its chest. The other 2 took cover and continued shooting. Bolts of energy flew through the warehouse, melting everything they touched. Jin shouted, "The pathogen bombs now." Jin pulled two small spheres from his pack and threw them toward the. They exploded in clouds of white mist that filled the air around the aliens. They stopped firing immediately, their hands going to their helmets. "What is this?" one of them roared. "What have you done?" Watched as the aliens staggered, coughing and gasping. Their suit filters had been breached. Earth's invisible army was now inside their bodies. "We have given you a gift," said coldly, "a taste of our world." The team escaped through a side entrance while the infected collapsed. Outside, the complex was in chaos. Fires burned in multiple buildings. Soldiers ran in every direction, trying to contain the damage. Resistance fighters fired from hidden positions, keeping the enemy off balance. "All teams report," said into her earpiece. One by one, the team leaders responded. Most had completed their objectives. Some had taken casualties. One team had been completely destroyed. "Fall back," ordered. "Everyone get to the extraction point. We leave in 5 minutes." She ran through the smoke and fire with Ho at her side. Behind them, explosions began to rock the complex as the planted charges detonated. Warehouses collapsed. Landing pads crumbled. Months of supplies went up in flames. They reached the extraction point, a drainage tunnel that led out of the complex. Other fighters were already there, helping the wounded into the darkness. "Go," told Ho. "I will make sure everyone gets out." "I am not leaving without you." "That was not a request. Go." Ho looked at her for a long moment, then nodded and disappeared into the tunnel. Turned back toward the complex, counting the fighters as they arrived. Then she saw the commander. Himself strode through the flames, his massive form untouched by the destruction around him. He held a weapon larger than any human could lift, and his black eyes scanned the area with cold fury. "Humans," he roared, his voice carrying over the noise of battle. "You think this changes anything? You think you can defeat us with tricks and traps?" He raised his weapon and fired. The blast struck the ground near the tunnel entrance, sending dirt and rock flying. Fighters screamed as they were thrown back. Stepped forward, putting herself between and the tunnel. "Get the wounded out," she shouted to the fighters behind her. "I will hold him." "You," laughed that terrible rumbling sound. "One small human against me. You are even more foolish than I thought." He fired again, dove aside, barely avoiding the blast. She raised her rifle and shot back, but's personal shield absorbed every hit. "Tonight we destroyed your supplies," said, still shooting. "Tomorrow we will destroy more. We will never stop. We will fight until every last one of you is dead or gone from our world." "You will die tonight," replied, "and your death will be slow." He advanced toward her, his weapon charging for another shot. Knew she could not defeat him. Her rifle was useless against his shield. She had no pathogen bombs left. All she could do was buy time. Then Ho appeared beside her. "I told you to leave," said. "And I told you I was not leaving without you." He held something in his hand, the detonator for the remaining charges they had planted. "There are more explosives in the building behind him," Ho said quietly. "I can bring it down on top of him, but I have to get closer to make sure." "Ho, no. Get the others out, sister. I will handle this." Before could stop him, Ho ran toward. The commander turned his weapon and fired, but Ho dodged with speed born of years of training. He got within 20 meters of the building, then pressed the detonator. The explosion was enormous. The building collapsed in a wall of fire and debris, burying everything beneath it. Was thrown backward by the force of the blast. When she looked up, both Ho and were gone, buried under tons of burning wreckage. "Ho!" she screamed. Strong hands grabbed her and pulled her toward the tunnel. "We have to go," someone shouted. "More are coming." Fought against them, trying to reach the burning rubble where her brother lay. But there were too many hands, too many voices telling her to move. They dragged her into the darkness of the tunnel as the sounds of approaching grew louder behind them. The mission was a success. The supply depot was destroyed. Dozens of were dead or infected. The resistance had proven that humans could strike back and win. But as stumbled through the tunnel with tears streaming down her face, victory felt like ashes in her mouth. Ho was gone. Her little brother, who had stood beside her since the first day of the invasion, who had never stopped believing they could win, was gone. And somewhere in the ruins above, his body lay buried. They would find their commander dead. They would see what humans had done. They would learn to be afraid. But that knowledge brought no comfort as she disappeared into the darkness, leaving her brother behind forever. The news of the attack spread across the planet like fire. In every occupied territory, humans heard what had happened. A supply depot destroyed. Dozens of alien soldiers killed. Commander buried under the rubble of his own base. For the first time since the invasion, humans had won a real victory. And they were terrified. Did not feel like a hero. She sat alone in a dark corner of the underground base, staring at the wall and seeing nothing. It had been 3 weeks since the attack, 3 weeks since Ho died, 3 weeks of people calling her a legend while she felt only emptiness inside. Found her there one morning. The older woman sat down beside without speaking. They stayed in silence for a long time before finally spoke. The pathogen bombs are working better than we hoped. Soldiers are dying by the hundreds. Their medics cannot stop the infections. They have started wearing double-sealed suits, which slows them down and makes them clumsy. The occupation is weakening. Said nothing. Your brother's sacrifice meant something, continued gently. He gave us a chance to win this war. He should be here to see it. Yes, he should. But he is not, and that cannot be changed. What we can do is finish what he helped start. Finally looked at, her eyes were red from sleepless nights and shed tears. I know, I just need time. We do not have much time. Something is happening and you need to see it. Led through the tunnels to a room she had never entered before. Inside were communication devices more advanced than anything the Resistance usually possessed. A young woman sat at a console, adjusting controls with practiced hands. This is Min, said. She was a satellite engineer before the invasion. She has been working on something important. Min stood up and greeted with a respectful bow. It is an honor to meet you. Your brother's actions inspired my entire team. What are you working on? Asked, pushing aside the pain that came with every mention of Ho. When they invaded, they destroyed most of our satellites, but they did not destroy all of them. A few military satellites went dark and drifted into unusual orbits. The aliens thought they were dead. They were wrong. Min pressed a button, and a screen lit up with images of space. Saw the Earth from above, surrounded by ships. But there were other things in the image too. Smaller shapes hiding in the debris fields and behind the moon. Those are human ships, said, not believing her own eyes. Yes, when the invasion started, some of our space forces escaped. They hid in deep space, waiting for the right moment. For 3 years they have been watching, gathering intelligence and building strength, and they are not alone. More images appeared on the screen. Ships of different designs, clearly not but also not human. Other species, explained. Races that were conquered by the long ago. They have been watching our resistance with great interest. No one has ever fought back like we have. They want to help. Felt something stir inside her. It was small, just a spark, but it was the first warmth she had felt in weeks. How do we contact them? Already done. They are waiting for us to give the signal. Min brought up another image. This one showed a map of the Earth with dozens of red dots scattered across different continents. Before they surrendered, our governments hid weapons in secret bunkers around the world. Nuclear weapons, biological weapons, experimental technology that was never finished. The search for these bunkers but never found them. We have been slowly accessing them over the past year. We have weapons, asked. We have enough weapons to hurt them badly, not enough to win on our own, but combined with the hidden fleet and our alien allies, it might be enough. Stared at the screen, her mind racing. For 3 years, they had been fighting with stolen weapons and homemade bombs. They had won small victories and suffered terrible losses. She had believed they were alone, that no help would ever come. She had been wrong. "Show me everything," she said. "I want to know exactly what we have." For the next several hours, Min showed the full scope of what had been hidden from the underground factories that had been building weapons in secret. Bunkers filled with missiles and aircraft that the aliens never found. Communication networks that connected resistance cells across the entire planet. And most importantly, she learned about the fleet. 12 human warships had escaped the invasion. They were old and damaged, but they had been repaired and upgraded with technology stolen from themselves. 4 more ships had been built in secret facilities on the far side of the moon. Combined with vessels from 3 allied alien species, humanity had a space force of nearly 40 ships. It was not much against the Empire, but it was far more than nothing. "They think we are beaten," said slowly. "They think we are just annoying insects biting at their heels. They have no idea what we have been preparing." "No," agreed. "They made the same mistake they always make. They saw our weak bodies and assumed weak minds. They did not understand that humans are most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose." That night contacted the resistance leaders from every continent. She told them about the hidden weapons, the secret fleet, and the alien allies waiting to help. She watched their faces change as they realized that victory was actually possible. "We have one chance," told them. "One coordinated strike against every major installation on Earth. At the same moment our fleet attacks their ships in orbit, our allies hit their supply lines. We cut them off, surround them, and finish them." "What about there?" one leader asked. "Even if we free Earth, their empire will send more ships." "That is phase 2, replied with a cold smile. "Once Earth is free, we do not stop. We take the fight to them. We show the entire galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." The room was quiet as everyone absorbed her words. Then Jin spoke up. Ho would have loved this plan. Felt tears prick her eyes, but she did not let them fall. Yes, he would have. And we are going to win this war for him, for everyone we have lost, for everyone still fighting. She stood tall and looked at each face on the screen. The thought humans were feeble. They thought we would break easily and serve quietly. They were wrong about everything. We are survivors. We are fighters. And very soon we will be their worst nightmare. The meeting ended with everyone knowing what to do. Messages were sent to every resistance cell. Weapons were moved into position. Pilots trained in secret prepared for battle. And far above the Earth, hidden among the stars, a fleet began to move toward home. The awakening had begun. The still walked the streets of occupied cities, confident in their superiority. They still looked at humans with contempt, seeing only small, fragile creatures beneath their notice. They did not see the storm that was coming. They did not hear the thunder building in the distance. But very soon, they would learn what humanity truly was. And by then, it would be far too late. The High Council sat in their chamber surrounded by screens showing reports from across their empire. For 1,000 years, this room had received only news of victories, conquered planets, enslaved species, expanding territory. They were the masters of the galaxy, and nothing could challenge their power. Until today. "Report from Earth," an officer announced, his voice trembling slightly. "We have lost contact with all ground forces. Enemy ships have destroyed our orbital fleet. The planet is lost." Silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other with expressions of disbelief. "Lost," the High Chancellor repeated, To humans, that is impossible. But it was not impossible, it was happening. Stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching through thee as the last ship above Earth exploded into fragments. Around her, crew members cheered and embraced. After 4 years of occupation, their world was free. All enemy vessels destroyed, Min reported from her station. Earth orbit is clear. Ground forces asked. Resistance cells report victory in every major city. Troops are surrendering across all continents. Those who tried to fight were overwhelmed within hours. The attack had begun at exactly midnight, coordinated across every time zone simultaneously. While the hidden fleet engaged ships in orbit, resistance fighters emerged from underground to strike every alien installation on the planet. Though weakened by disease and exhausted from years of fighting an enemy that never stopped, collapsed almost immediately. It had taken 4 years to prepare. It had taken only 12 hours to win. But knew the war was not over. Freeing Earth was just the beginning. Set course for the, she commanded. Signal all allied ships to follow. Are you certain? Asked from beside her. We have just one. Our people need time to recover. Our people need to never fear invasion again. The Empire must fall completely or they will return. We end this now. The fleet moved out from Earth orbit. 40 ships carrying thousands of human soldiers and their alien allies. It was a small force compared to the vast navy, but they had advantages the enemy could not match. They had been underestimated, and they had nothing left to lose. The journey to the took 3 weeks. During that time, more ships joined the fleet. Species that had been conquered centuries ago rose up against their masters. Planets that had seemed completely controlled suddenly erupted in rebellion. The news of Earth's liberation spread through the galaxy like a wave, inspiring others to fight. By the time's fleet reached space, they were not 40 ships, they were 200. The battle for the lasted 9 days. It was brutal and costly, lost many friends and allies. But the humans and their new partners fought with a fury they had never experienced. Every ship that fell was replaced by 2 more. Every defeat only made the attackers more determined. On the 9th day, the defenses finally broke. Led the landing force herself, touching down on alien soil with 3,000 human soldiers behind her. The capital city stretched before them, tall towers and massive structures built to show the power of a species that had ruled for 1,000 years. That power was crumbling. Civilians fled through the streets, terrified of the small creatures they had once considered beneath notice. Soldiers threw down their weapons and surrendered rather than face enemies who would not stop fighting. The great empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds was falling apart in a matter of hours. Walked through the chaos toward the central government building. Her soldiers cleared the path ahead of her, meeting little resistance. By the time she reached the council chamber, the fighting was essentially over. The High Chancellor sat alone on his throne, surrounded by empty seats where his council had once sat. He was old for his gray skin wrinkled and his black eyes dimmed with age. He looked at as she entered, and for the first time she saw something she had never seen in a face. Fear. So, he said, his voice weak and tired. The feeble species has come to claim its vengeance. Yes, replied simply. Will you kill me? Will you destroy our cities and enslave our people as we did to yours? Looked at him for a long moment. She thought about her grandmother, taken away and never seen again. She thought about all the humans who had died in labor camps. She thought about Ho, buried under the rubble of a burning building. She had every reason to want revenge, every right to make the suffer as humanity had suffered. But that was not why she had come. No, she said finally, we will not become you. We are not conquerors, we are not slavers, we are human. The Chancellor looked confused. Then what do you want? Freedom, for us and for every species you have enslaved. Your empire ends today. Your military will be disbanded, your conquered worlds will be released, and you will never threaten another planet again. And if we refuse? Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You saw what we did when we were weak and had nothing. Imagine what we will do now that we are strong. Do not test us. The Chancellor was silent for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. We accept your terms. The war was over. In the weeks that followed, the empire dissolved. Dozens of enslaved species reclaimed their worlds. New alliances formed between humans and those they had helped free. Earth became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy, proof that even the smallest and weakest could rise against tyranny. Stood on a hill outside Seoul, watching the sun set over a city that was slowly being rebuilt. The air was clean for the first time in years. Children played in the streets without fear. Life was returning to normal, or at least to something new that could become normal. Walked up beside her. The council wants to make you president, she said, or queen. They cannot decide which title sounds better. Laughed softly. Tell them I am not interested. I was a soldier, not a politician. The war is over. Let someone else lead the peace. What will you do? Looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the darkness. Somewhere out there were countless worlds she had never seen, species she had never met, adventures she had never imagined. I do not know yet, but I think Ho would want me to keep exploring, keep pushing forward. He always said humans were meant for something more than just survival. He was right, you proved that. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. They had thought humans were feeble. They had seen small bodies and soft skin and assumed an easy conquest. They had not understood what truly made a species strong. It was not size or claws or advanced technology. It was the refusal to give up, the ability to endure any hardship, the will to fight even when victory seemed impossible. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues. They had survived wars and disasters. And when aliens came to enslave them, they had survived that too. More than survived. They had won. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Took one last look at the stars, thinking of her brother and all those who had given their lives for this moment. Then she turned and walked back toward the city, ready to help build the future they had fought so hard to reach. The vengeance was complete. Now it was time to live.